You're about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOCDALI. So we're going to hear a lot about universal childcare. Whether it's the next election, whether it's the midterms, whether it's we're going to promise childcare for your child. And trust me, when I had 2 kids and I was trying to start a practice and support the family and deal with student loans, and my husband had much more student loans than I had. I mean, childcare was expensive. Not having family support to help us with the babies, it was not easy. But I would have never expected that my state or my city or my country would just have that paid for me and handled. It would be nice, but I just didn't think it would be practical. So all eyes are on New York City, because this is what Zohran Mamdani promised, universal child care. So, yeah, it sounds good. I'll vote you in. It's worth a try. You know, it's interesting. A lot of people that voted for him, so not that they thought he would do it, but they liked what he was saying. And they're like, well, you know what? It's closer to us getting there than we are now. So let's see what he could do. Do I think he's going to make it happen? No. I'll tell you why in a little bit. But people are cautiously optimistic about socialism. I'm not. I think it's going to be an absolute mess. But, having the ability to be able to go back to work and not be spending more on childcare than work, because that's the situation where the amount of money you're making with work barely cuts childcare. So families are like, I might as well stay home with the baby. And that's the reality of it. But how would that work for a city to take on fully universal childcare? Well, we're being told by New York Post that for New York City alone, that would be a $14 billion a year price tag. $14 billion a year. Now, Mayor Mamdani, his supporters argue that shifting the cost to the government would make New York more livable for families with young children and create new daycare jobs. Okay, well, then that's the next thing. You want to have universal care. You want to have universal child care. Do you have the infrastructure now? Do you have the building space? Do you have the teachers? Do you have those trained? How are you going to hire? Who's running this? Is it private companies or the government? Does the government know how to run childcare? Does the government run anything correctly? They're not running healthcare well. They're not running things well. And now we're going to trust our kids to your universal healthcare, where you got it covered. You're paying the staff. Look at Minnesota's child care situation. They have departments that are supposed to oversee private child care institutions. Misspelled signs, no kids, no teachers. Zohran Mamdani wants to, do a blueprint of this. And we're still trying to figure out why there was so much fraud in Minnesota as it pertained to child care. The state has to be able to deliver good, safe, licensed care. Do you have the facilities? Do you have the workers? Do you have the funds? Do you have the training? So Mamdani says we will subsidize childcare at home for families who prefer a trusted neighbor or relative to take care of their child. Okay. So what that means is if you have a buddy and you guys want to make money, then you'll be claiming, yep, they're watching my kid. I see the fraud already. I see how people can now defraud the system. Now, would that be nice? where, look, I'm going to give my mom some extra money or my father some extra money to watch the kid. Now we got some extra wiggle room. I'll make them more, that would be very, very nice to do. But I just see people taking advantage. I'm not going to go back to work. I'm going to work from home. I'm going to claim I'm paying a neighbor. And then who's taxing that? If the neighbor's getting money, are they getting taxed? Are you 1099? I mean, this is a little bit more complicated. So now you have to rely on self-reporting. Hours claimed, was care provided? And then what about the lawsuits? You are providing universal care. You are paying for that child care. And then somebody uses a neighbor who assaults the child. I'm sure there'll be lawsuits because you as the government paid for that person to assault the child. Did you oversee? Who is overseeing this? This isn't practical, people. Now, tax credits. I get that. Your kids in childcare, your kids in daycare, you show us the receipts, there's a tax credit. I mean, that will help people, and we're already doing that to a degree. But saying, we're going to give you money in the meantime to watch your kid, where is he getting the money from? I know California is going to be doing a billionaire tax. Now, what is New York going to do the same? It doesn't look like the billionaires are staying. Now, consumer-directed personal assistance program pays family members to care for elderly or disabled relatives at home. Unfortunately, the reliance on self-reporting has made it difficult to oversee. The state is now struggling with widespread waste, fraud, and mismanagement. The New York Post reported that the CDAP program, the Consumer-Directed Personal Assistance Program for Elderly, lost more than $1 billion to middlemen and theft over the last decade. Who's overseeing this? So my worry is Mamdani and Governor Hochul are going to want to get, reelected. And so they're going to, say, well, this is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. We're just going to give the money. And they don't care about the waste, fraud, and abuse because they want to make good on a promise. But I see this could be a mess. 1-877-Doc-Dolly. Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Let's face it, guys, we're living in times where the truth is becoming more suppressed and censorship is increasing at an alarming rate, especially on social media platforms. It's Clyde, and I want to tell you about a safe and secure digital playground we put together just for you. It's aftermath.media. You get access to thousands of Ground Zero archives and podcasts, along with our private social media groups with your basic membership starting at only $7 a month. Each subscription includes tech support, access to the RSS feeds, along with our own chat room and Telegram channel. In addition, the premium membership includes research study groups, webinars, a document and movie library, a live video stream of Ground Zero, a monthly Zoom chat with me, and other bonus content. Be sure to check out our yearly specials as well. Sign up today while you're thinking about it. Sign up at aftermath.media. Again, that's aftermath.media.
We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Doc-Dali, 1-877-DOCDALI. All right, this really, really burns my butt. Big thanks, by the way, to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. And I probably am going to have to thank Tux, the witch hazel, because this story really burns my butt, and I'm probably going to need to use some Tux after this. So we all knew that there was a leak. Apparently there was a person who worked at the DHS that compiled, I think, a list, an ICE list, doxing thousands of agents, leaking their identities. We're being told by police1.com that the founder of this list doesn't even live in the United States. And Trump had said yesterday at the press conference on Whole Milk that they found the guy. But the founder of a website that publishes the names of ICE and Border Patrol agents said a Department of Homeland Security whistleblower provided personal information for thousands of federal agents and employees. And this is being also reported by the National News Desk. Dominique Skinner runs ICE List. And he told the Daily Beast that a DHS employee shared information on about 4,500 people, including roughly 2,000 frontline ICE agents and 2,500 employees in support roles. Skinner lives in the Netherlands. He's not a U.S. citizen. I don't know why he has this list, but ICE List launched in June of 2025 during the expansion of federal immigration enforcement. Skinner previously told El País, which means the country, that the site is run by 3 people and uses artificial intelligence to help verify identities. He said the website received 1 million views in October. This is really frightening for people who work for the government. Federal officials and lawmakers have warned that publishing personal information of law enforcement officers puts them and their families at risk. Duh. Legislation aimed at limiting this practice was introduced last year, but it limits it in America. Why is this Netherlands guy doing this? And who the hell was the leaker at DHS? DHS leaders have said immigration officers are facing sharp increase in threats and assaults amid heightened tensions over enforcement. In a statement, a DHS spokesperson said doxing law enforcement officers endangers lives, vowed that those responsible would be prosecuted. So Skinner told the Daily Beast that he plans to publish the majority of these names on the ICE list he's able to verify, but says exceptions may be made on a case-by-case level. Well, this guy's a piece of work. And then who the hell is the person that's leaking? So what's really scary about this is, let's say, okay, so for now it's ICE. People are saying, well, yeah, we're anti-ICE, so we are allowed to invade their identity, assault them, all this other stuff because it's ICE. Well, what happens when they get tired of ICE? And they're like, you know what? Whoever worked for the Trump government, whoever worked for Trump is evil. Now you're associated, you're guilty by association. So now government workers who currently work for the government, now they could be doxxed. And all it takes is these activists, these paid activists, to say, you know what? These people worked to get rid of the Department of Education. Or these people worked to stop funding for this grant. Here are the names. Now, we have very ill criminals out there that may want to hunt you down. And how are Democrats okay with this? Look at those Minnesota. Were they from Minnesota? Those 2 Congress people, or I'm sorry, state senators or state legislators who were shot. People kill public officials. Look at Gabby Gifford, shot in the head while at a campaign rally in Tucson. We know that people can be very disgusting, murderous, and go after people in their sleep, and you have no problem with this doxing. And you see the purpose, what people are trying to do, and it's not all Democrats. There's a lot of Democrats that are supporting, getting criminals out of the country. But you have the people causing mayhem saying we need to videotape you, film you, remove your mask, because what they want to do is intimidate people so they don't work for the government. They want to intimidate people so much that they quit. But interestingly, there's thousands of people who they're not wavering. Like, we have a job to do. We need to keep this country safe. And one thing that the media wants you to think is that the majority of people feel this way. They actually don't. The majority of people are centrist. They're moderate. We keep seeing the fringes. But the majority of people are like, look, we don't need to make a federal case about this. We don't need to make it, let's just do some common sense. Keep boys out of the bathroom. Let women, play in sports without competing against a guy. They're not going to be activists about it. Like, come on, man, common sense. A guy can't give birth. Somebody wants to identify, that's what they want to do. That's fine. Somebody wants to have a relationship with who they want to have a relationship. That's a consenting adult. That's fine. We keep the laws out of it. Gay marriage is fine. Let people be together. But if a girl doesn't want to change in front of a biological male, come on, man, keep the guys out of the locker room. The majority of people are pretty common sense about stuff. We got criminals. We need to remove them. People snuck in wolves in sheep's clothing during the Biden porous border. Let's secure the border, and the people who shouldn't be here, get them out. Common sense type stuff. But instead, it's all the extremes. And since it wasn't newsworthy that ICE came in, it's newsworthy to me, and got Tren de Aragua cartel members out of Colorado or the country, even though that isn't, they think what's really going to be helping them in the news is seeing an innocent woman screaming while being tackled, by ICE agents. Now, is it because that person threatened them? Is it because somebody went after them with the car? Is it because, that person was impeding an operation? ICE agents don't need this hassle. They don't need to be doxxed. They need to get the criminals out. And they need to enforce our laws and enforce the Constitution. And, we don't see this in Canada and other countries who have stricter immigration laws because nobody let the border be open and porous. But you go to Canada and you aren't a citizen there, and you try to live there, for an extended period of time, you're out. They will deport you. I read to you guys the immigration laws. You don't show up for a court hearing. You put misinformation on you're out. You're deported. Same thing with Japan, Germany. Department of Homeland Security said that maybe some Americans may be asked for proof of citizenship during enforcement operations. Now, I know this has caused a lot of criticism, but Noam said if we were on a target, there may be individuals surrounding that criminal that we may be asking who they are and why they're there and have them validate their identity. Now, I know, as I said, this, causes some criticism, but when I went to Israel and I took my mom to Israel, they gave me a card that was a temporary permit to be in the country. And they said to keep this on me because I'm going to be asked to show it to people. So I kept it on me. In other countries, you have to show who you are. Now, we haven't had to do that in America. You could go into a Walmart or Costco and do your thing, and nobody's going to say, show me your papers. But in other countries, they do if there's a concern about safety. Now, if somebody asks me, where's my birth certificate? I don't know. Now, I have a driver's license. But nowadays, your driver's license does not necessarily denote your citizenship status. Now, non-citizens and illegal immigrants can get driver's licenses. So, because before, it's show me your driver's license. We've done that before. How many times have you been asked to show your ID? We're asked to show our IDs all the time to get alcohol, to get cigarettes, when we walk into a bar. If we're using tickets for a show or something, sometimes let me see your ID. Are these your tickets? You have to show ID all the time. That's not a big deal. But nobody wants this show me your papers to see if you're a citizen. And so we wouldn't be in this position if it wasn't for Biden. We knew this was going to happen. We knew that whoever came in after Biden was going to have to clean up his mess, and it was going to look ugly. And then the onus was going to be on the person doing the cleanup. But, if you go to any other country, you need to, be able to show that you're a citizen or not. 1-877-Doc-Dolly, don't go away.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
in many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regenerations. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret.
Powered by science.
All right. We are back on Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Doc-Dolly, 1-877-DOCDALI. Got milk? Well, apparently the schools are going to have milk again, whole milk for kids. And this was a huge move that President Donald Trump had to do. It's mind-boggling how kids didn't have access to whole milk because there's been such an anti-fat sort of sentiment to things. And if whole milk, fills these kids up so they're not eating sugary things, and if they're, able to have more energy and exercise, I don't have a problem with kids drinking whole milk. And so it is coming back into school cafeterias. He is overturning Obama-era limits on higher fat milk options. Non-dairy drinks such as fortified soy milk can also be on the menu in coming months. So for kids who are lactose intolerant or cannot tolerate milk, whole milk, 2% milk, there are other options that they could have. So this action allows schools participating in the National School Lunch Program to serve whole and 2% fat milk, and they could still give skim and low-fat products. Now, that's fine, too. There can be skim milk for the kids who want them. But at least there is whole milk. Trump said whether you're a Democrat or Republican, whole milk is a great thing. The law also permits schools to serve non-dairy milk that meets the nutritional standards of milk and requires schools to offer a non-dairy milk alternative if kids provide a note from their parents, not just from doctors. If you look at the bill, this was an act to amend the Richard B. Russell National School Lunch Act. And it was very interesting. The act is cited as the Whole Milk for Healthy Kids Act of 2025. And what they did is they striked clauses and inserted the following: shall offer students a variety of fluid milk. And then they said may offer students options which may include flavored and unflavored, organic or non-organic, whole, reduced fat, low fat, fat-free fluid milk, lactose-free fluid milk, and non-dairy beverages that are nutritionally equivalent to fluid milk and meet the nutritional standards established by the Secretary, but shall, among other requirements to be determined by the Secretary, include fortification of calcium, protein, vitamin A, vitamin D to levels found in cow's milk. And they strike physician and insert physician, parent, or legal guardian, meaning now this isn't just a note from the doctor. If a parent wants the child to have whole milk, they can have it. So they also added saturated fat. Milk fat included in any fluid milk, provided the subparagraph A, shall not be considered saturated fat for purposes of measuring compliance with the allowable average saturated fat content of a meal under section. So they're saying if you're offering the milk, you don't have to necessarily now cut fat amounts in their lunch. So there's a little bit more to the act. But, this is something that has been, confusing people. One of my listeners asked, are there chemicals in milk to make it non-fat? From what I understand, no. How they make non-fat milk is they centrifuge out the fat. So they separate out a lot of the cream because of the heaviness of it. And so, like, for example, I don't know if you've ever had your blood drawn and then watched the lab tech centrifuge your blood. And so if you have high cholesterol and fat, you will see the fat rise to the top of that blood tube. And so what they do is they separate the fat cream, or they separate the fat. They could remove that, and then that could leave behind the low-fat milk. And then they may add the extra A and D vitamins and other things that could be lost when you remove the fat content. And so it's not necessarily they're using chemicals to strip the fat. They're doing centrifuge processes. Now, somebody asked, can the centrifuge affect the proteins? I mean, mechanically, maybe. But the separation at high speeds, changing the density of the milk, actually, sometimes the fat actually settles to the bottom. I apologize about that. So, there's no chemicals, but yeah, it is. It's a high speed centrifuge. I think it's like 3,500 RPM. I'm not an expert on that, but from what I understand, they can make fat-free milk without chemicals. So if somebody's drinking fat-free milk, it's not that they're imbibing extra chemicals, but they are losing out on the fat-soluble vitamins. This is why milk has to be fortified, because your A and D, E, vitamin K, so your fat-soluble vitamins, but especially A and D, get lost when you lose that. When we say drink milk to get your vitamin D, we're talking about the whole milk. Then, of course, there's the pasteurization. The pasteurization is where they heat it up and then they freeze it quickly, and then that kills bacteria. And then they pressurized milk, the homogenization, to also make it less bacteria friendly. So, there are processes that happen to our milk, but, because it's not farm to table. But from what I understand, there's no chemicals. But the idea of let a kid drink a glass of whole milk, it'll help fill them up so they're not asking for candy bars or sugary cereal, is a really valid argument. And so, I don't like milk. I've never liked milk or the taste of milk. I really can't stand non-fat milk. It tastes like water. I don't like it. I'm not a big milk drinker. I'll have like a little bit with some cereal. I was just never a milk drinker. I just never liked it. I don't have any lactose intolerance. I just wasn't really. Now I'll eat cheese, but I just, I've never really liked milk. Will I drink chocolate milk? Yes. And the schools will still allow chocolate milk for those kids who want them. But we really got to figure out how to get kids off chocolate milk, because that's really not healthy. It was a way to get kids to drink milk, but it's still not the healthiest thing to do. But, if a child has for breakfast an orange, an egg white, some avocado toast, and milk, or even a slice of lean chicken, I mean, that's going to fill them up. But instead, they're going to school on Lucky Charms. Yeah, we may fortify the Lucky Charms with some vitamins. That's nice and all. But the sugar they're getting hungry within a couple hours. And how were our babies raised? They're raised on mother's milk, breast milk. And we've really gotten away from whole foods. Now, why are we so concerned? Why were the Obamas so concerned about saturated fat? Well, if you're lathering stuff up in butter, having greasy corned beef hash and bacon, and eggs lathered in butter and grease, we might as well limit some of the fat where we can. But if this whole milk is part of a nutritious breakfast, I don't think it's going to be that. This is why there's so much back and forth with eggs. Eggs are bad. Eggs are good. Eggs are bad. Eggs are good. Eggs are good if you're not, lathering them up with fat and grease. and you're eating one or two, and it's a part of a balanced meal, it fills you up. If somebody has high cholesterol and we say no eggs, does their cholesterol go down completely? Well, if all they're eating is salad, vegetables, and eggs, maybe. But that's not why their cholesterol's up. Now, people say, well, the meat, this is why you have to cut your meat. You shouldn't eat too much meat. And our portion sizes should be small. But absolutely, there's essential amino acids. When you have somebody who's vegan or vegetarian, we will supplement or we will have them eat vegetables and try to come up with other protein sources, like such as nuts, etc. So they still get their protein and still get their balanced diet. But there's a lot of advantages to meat, especially if it fills you up. We don't want you to eat too much of it. We still have to look at portion control. So I don't mind that the pyramid's flipped. I don't mind that they are saying, look, eat whole foods, single ingredient foods. I think that's brilliant. Single ingredient foods. Eat smaller portions, eat a variety, and let's go back to natural type food. But instead, it's these egg sandwiches and Lego Miego and all sorts of other stuff that people are doing that's not really healthy. That's not fueling our kids and helping their brains and their development. And when you look at kids and their anxiety and depression, we got to look at their diet. 1-877-DOT-DOLLY.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Hey guys, it's Dr. Dahlia. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our fantasy football pocket guide for beginners found on Amazon or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out. All right. Well, we are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So do these weight loss drugs cause suicidality? Do people who take Wegovy, Zepbound, want to commit suicide? Well, the FDA is now asking that they remove the suicide warnings. Apparently, these warnings were added when the drugs were first approved for weight loss back in 2023. After patients taking older weight loss treatments reported depression and suicidal ideation. But yesterday, or 2 days ago, regulators said that they did an extensive review of clinical and real-world data, and they showed no increased suicide risk among people using the drugs. Ozempic and Mounjaro are the older sister medications, same medication as Wegovy and Zepbound, but Ozempic and Mounjaro have been around a lot longer because we use them for type 2 diabetes. They don't have suicide warnings on their labels. So the FDA is going to bring all GLP-1 drugs into line. Because I know that's the first question a lot of doctors said. They go, wait a second, suicide warnings on Zepbound and Wegovy. Well, then are there suicide warnings on Ozempic and Mounjaro? Because Wegovy is Ozempic and Zepbound is Mounjaro, except the weight loss advertised medication for those. And no, I don't know of any suicidal warnings for the diabetic Ozempic and Mounjaro. So that is interesting that delineation was put on the weight loss drugs when it's the same medication. So they say today's FDA action will ensure consistent messaging across the labeling for all FDA-approved GLP-1 medications. Now, of course, headlines are making it act like the FDA is, committing the biggest crime in the world, but this is something that happens in medicine. Now, where did this come from? Well, suicide risk was a major safety concern around weight loss drugs when the FDA received hundreds of reports from patients who said they started experiencing suicidal thoughts or despair while taking the drugs. And these were individuals who apparently had no mental health issues. So regulators did an analysis, and they looked at 91 studies involving, according to Daily Mail, more than 100,000 people, and they found no link between medications and suicide. And there was a small number of cases in individual trials that applied to Saxenda. Saxenda is an older GLP-1 by Novo Nordisk that was approved for weight loss back in 2014. But apparently, they don't feel that Saxenda also causes suicidality. So Novo Nordisk, Eli Lilly are happy about this. As far as I'm concerned, if at all you have depression, thoughts of suicide, sudden changes in your mood, behavior, thoughts, feelings, please call your healthcare provider right away. If the FDA does not feel that this is a risk for everybody, it's going to be off. But if there is that potential, just because the FDA doesn't have a black box warning, you still need to be aware of it. So, medications and why did weight loss drugs have suicidality? Well, it's interesting. Many of the weight loss drugs that were originally used were speed, amphetamines. And when you come down off that amphetamine, like phentermine, fen, things like that, you can have a mental health issue or crisis. And so we are concerned about people taking speed-related weight loss drugs, not the GLP-1s. And then with the GLP-1, if somebody said, well, why do they think GLP-1s could do it? Well, I'm seeing a group of individuals where they're getting depressed that the medicine isn't working. It doesn't mean it's the GLP-1 causing them to get depressed, or are they depressed that they had high hopes that they would look like Oprah Winfrey, and they're not. Now, so, can these drugs eventually cause depression? Well, secondarily, if you've been spending $1,000 a month or getting them online, let's say for $500 a month, and you lost 10 pounds and now you're gaining back because your body's getting used to the drug, you're not going to be a happy camper. And so I really do believe that there could be depression. Not so much that the drug is messing with your brain to cause depression, but you are going to feel like you are thousands of dollars in debt. You used your credit card to buy the prescriptions, and now you feel like you can't go off of them because you're going to rebound even more and these medicines aren't working for you anymore. Or you see your friends that are skinny and you can't tolerate the medicine because the side effects or the cost, and you're depressed about that. So yes, I do think there could be a secondary depression, but have I heard that these medications cause suicidality? I haven't seen that in my patient population. But just be aware. Watch out for that. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So in breaking news, there have been, I'm seeing two numbers, 17 people charged or 20 people charged, as it pertains to this point shaving scheme with NCAA Division I teams. They say 20 men have been charged in college basketball, a college basketball point shaving scheme, leading to at least 29 games being fixed. according to a federal indictment unsealed Thursday in the Eastern District of Pennsylvania. ESPN is reporting that 15 of the defendants played college basketball during the 23-24 or 24-25 seasons. Two of the players named in the indictment, Sedquavius Hunter and DeQuavian Short, were sanctioned in November by NCAA for fixing New Orleans games. Four of the players charged are Simeon Cottle, Carlos Hart, Camion Shell, and Umar Qureshi. They played for their current teams in the past week. The allegations against Hart, Shell, Qureshi stem from their previous schools, while Cottle's alleged incident occurred during the 23-24 season. Now, they say none of the allegations involve this season. So according to U.S. Attorney David Metcalf, this was a massive scheme that enveloped the world of college basketball. This was a significant and rampant corruption of college athletics. Now, the charges were filed in federal court in Philadelphia, including bribery, wire fraud, and conspiracy. The bribery charges carry a maximum sentence of 5 years. The fraud charges carry a maximum sentence of 20 years. The other five defendants were described as by authorities as fixers. Two of the defendants, Shane Hennon and Marv's Fairley, were also charged in the federal indictment. The former NBA player Antonio Blakeney was named but not charged. They described Blakeney as being charged elsewhere. So apparently the scheme involved a 70-page indictment beginning around September 2022, focusing on fixing games of the Chinese Basketball Association. The group later targeted college basketball games, offering bribes to college players from $10,000 to $30,000 to compromise games for betting purposes. So in placing wagers on games they had fixed, the defendants were able to defraud sports books as well as individual sports bettors. And so, if you're thinking that a player is going to make the over, or the team's going to make the over, and then all of a sudden that player is just not throwing the hoops, no threes, missing it, falling, you're like, what's going on here? You were doing well. You should easily make the over. Now you lose. And people who bet on the under win if they knew about this. And, sports gambling, it is so rampant. And it is so, it's now, everybody has access to their FanDuel or STN Sports or their casino sports book. There's MGM. There's so many different, I could bet on games now as we speak. I don't because, I don't want to randomly bet. I want to be watching the sport. But people have that access. But, when you do sports betting, it's because you're looking at patterns, you're understanding players, you're knowing their injuries, and then you're making the best guess based on how they play. If somebody does, get injured, that's, it happens, and you need to be aware of that. I really like betting the over more than the under and more than the spread on a lot of games. But if somebody's going to fake the injury, wow. So sadly, I think this is a lot more than we think. I think there could be a lot more to this. And NCAA President Charlie Baker said in a statement that the NCAA enforcement staff has opened betting integrity investigations into approximately 40 players from 20 schools. And see, I don't know how far out it goes. Like, is it somebody's mother or cousin? Because I know players can't bet on their own games. But do they have something to gain if a family member is making the money? 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, don't go away. Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.